Welcome to the Church Online Campus. We are so glad you're joining us this evening. Tonight is the series finale of Welcome Home. If at any time during the message you have a question or you'd like to connect with us, go ahead and join our live chat to the right of the screen. For more information regarding the church and what we're all about, be sure and visit welcometothechurch.com. Now, here's Pastor Kevin with tonight's message. Enjoy.
Well, today we're going to start off with a series of questions. And here's the thing. Everybody in the room, man, we're intelligent folks. We've been around the block. We know how things are. So these questions are almost rhetorical. I'm not necessarily expecting to see a show of hands or to shout the answer or to get into a big debate, because quite honestly, I don't think there's going to be much of a debate. But we're going to throw out some questions of what would be right and what would be wrong. In these scenarios, what is the right thing to do? And in these scenarios, we're going to throw out what is the wrong thing to do. So here's just a series of very simple questions. First one is what is right and what is wrong? Is it right to hold a grudge, or is it right to forgive? I think we kind of know the answer there. Is it right to if you're married, to have wandering eyes? Ladies, you're at the gym and you're on the treadmill and you see this big hunk of a man and he's curling and doing pull downs and working out. Is it right that while you're on the treadmill as a married woman to be looking at this guy up and down and thinking, my God, I wish my husband looked like him? Is that right? Or would that be more towards wrong? Another question is it right or wrong to make a promise and then for whatever reason not keep it? We know that it'd be wrong. It's wrong to make a promise and not keep it. It's wrong to have wandering eyes if you're married. It's wrong to hold a grudge. It's right to forgive. It's right to keep your mind pure. It's right to keep your word. Is it right or wrong to give freely and not expect anything in return? Or is it right or wrong to give, but when I give, if I give something to Yulie, I'm really expecting Yulie to give me back? Would that be right or would it be wrong? Another one is to worry a lot. Is it a good idea? Is it right or wrong to stay up late at night and worrying about this and worrying about that and getting so stressed out? We all know. We've heard all the reports. That's a negative thing. That's a bad thing. Is it right to follow the crowd? Or is it wrong to follow the crowd? You see, these are all questions that it's almost like, okay, you about done here? Because we know the answers here, right? We know these. We know that it's right to do this or it's wrong to do that. There's no big surprise in any of these questions at all. But the thing about it is, the struggle that we have as people, no matter what our age is, once we get to about 12 years old, 13 years old, the struggle that we have as humans is not to try and figure out what the right thing to do is. We generally, in every situation, we kind of know what the right thing is. It's just kind of in us. We know this would be right, and we know this would probably be wrong. This would be the better choice, and this would be the wrong choice. We innately know this. So the struggle inside of us generally is not what is the right thing to do. The struggle that we generally have is will we do the right thing? That's the tension. It's not, is it right or wrong? It's, will I do what I know is right? And this tension and this struggle has an enormous amount to do with the topic we've been talking about the last few weeks of the Welcome Home series, of not just having a house, but making our house a home, a stable place that we want to come to every single night when we get off of work, to make our house a home. This tension of will I do what is right has a lot to do with do we live in a house or do we have a stable home? And because the thing of it is, and I want us to really understand this today, is if you are not healthy, your family won't be healthy. if you are not right, your family won't be right. If you're not doing the right thing, your marriage won't be right. If you're not doing the right thing, your relationship with your kids won't be right. If we're not stable, our family won't be stable. It's impossible because we are part of the family. So if you're not healthy, your family's not going to be healthy. Jesus was an absolutely amazing communicator. There's been people who in the secular world and the religious world that have studied his presentations, and they all agree this guy was captivating in the way that he spoke and the way that he delivered, and he brought spiritual things into practical life. He was an amazing communicator, and most people would agree that Jesus' greatest oratory was given on the side of a mountain. And his words are recorded in Matthew chapter 5, Matthew chapter 6, and Matthew chapter 7. And it's called the Sermon on the Mount. And some in the room have heard of this title, the Sermon on the Mount. And it's an amazing, amazing message that he gives. So what we want to do today is kind of look at this chapter 5, 6, and 7, kind of give some bullet points on it, and look at some of the truths that Jesus is saying and see if we can come to a really big aha kind of a moment to where, all right, that's the point he's trying to make, and that's the thing I need to take home with me. So today we're going to look at some of these passages of Scripture and look at the words of Jesus as it pertains to our life. Matthew 5, verses 21 through 25, Jesus talks about forgiving and not really holding grudges, making things right. Here's what he says. He says, "You have heard that it was said to the people long ago, 'You shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment.' But I tell you that anyone who is angry with his brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to his brother or sister, 'Raka,' or is answerable in court, and anyone who says, 'You fool,' will be in danger of fire of hell. Therefore, if you are offering your gift to the altar and you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar and first go and be reconciled to them. Then come and offer your gift. Settle matters quickly with your adversary who's taken you to court. Do it while you're still on the way, or your adversary might hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. Truly, I tell you, you will not get out until you've paid the last penny." So what Jesus is saying here is if there's tension between you and your brother, you and your sister, you and your spouse, you and your in-laws, you and whoever, that make peace quickly. Don't hold grudges. Well, back in the day, my dad, he did this, and this. That's why I'm not even going to go to Thanksgiving dinner today. Jesus is saying, no. If there's an issue between you and a brother and a sister, if there's an issue between someone, Jesus is saying, hey, get this thing taken care of. If you need to say you're sorry, say you're sorry. If they need to say you're sorry, they need to say this, then you go and confront them. But man, let's get this taken care of. Let's forgive quickly. Let's don't hold grudges. That's what Jesus is saying. Next one is Jesus goes on in Matthew 5, 27 and 30, says, he talks about these things right here, the eyeballs. He says, "You have heard that it was said, 'You shall not commit adultery,' but I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell." And again, what Jesus is explaining here is guys, and we all know this, if I'm a married man and I'm working at this office and there's this lady that keeps coming to my desk and she turns, and as I turn and she's talking and she's bending over and she's allowing me to see down her blouse, and I look and I look and I look, and then she turns and leaves, and as she's leaving, I look again and start to undress her with my mind. Jesus is saying, that's wrong. That's all he's saying. Don't do that. Don't go to the gym and Google eyes with guys. Don't go to the gym and look at some lady. Don't go to the office and check somebody out. He's saying, listen, that's mentally and spiritually wrong. Don't go there. That's all he's saying. He says goes on in Matthew 5:33, talks about our yeses being yeses and our noes being noses. Again, You've heard that it was said to people long ago, don't break your oath, but fulfill the Lord and the vows that you've made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven or for God's throne or by earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond that's from the evil one. And what Jesus is saying there is listen, man, you don't have to say, hey, I'll be there, I promise. Hey, I'll be there, I promise. Hey, I swear on my grandma's grave, I'll do that. No, it's just saying, hey, if you say you're going to be there, be there. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. He's simply saying, hey, be a person of your word. Goes on in Matthew 6:19. He says, don't store up treasures in heaven or on earth, where moth and dust destroy, where thieves break in and steal, but store for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is dark, how great is the darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and you'll despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. And what Jesus is saying there again is something we already know, that we shouldn't just live for today. We shouldn't just be all about what am I doing today and what am I doing tomorrow and have our eyes only on this life, that we should put our eyes on eternal things and do things today that don't just reap rewards today, that we reap rewards in eternity. Go to church even if you don't feel like it. Serve and be a part of the body. Give faithfully with your time. Give faithfully with your talent. Give faithfully with your treasures. Not to gain stuff here, but for gain stuff on the other side. Jesus goes on. Matthew 6. He talks about worrying doesn't help. He says, therefore I tell you, don't worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than your clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They don't sow or reap or store in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about your clothes? See the flowers of the field, how they grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that Solomon, in all of his splendor, was not dressed like one of these. If this is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you? Oh, you of little faith. And Jesus here is just simply saying, listen, it's not a good idea to sit there and worry. How am I going to pay this bill? How am I going to pay that bill? What am I going to wear this day? What I'm wearing is out of style. What I used to wear, I can't fit into anymore. Why? Don't worry. He takes care of the birds. He takes care of the grass. He takes care of all those things. God's got this. And he's simply saying, worrying's not a good idea. Trust me. Don't worry so much. He goes on in Matthew 7, says, don't judge people. Don't judge or you too will be judged. From the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And the measure that you use will be measured to you. Why do you look at the sawdust speck in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye when you have a plank in your own? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye and then see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. And what Jesus is saying there is listen, don't be the type of person that you never try and help someone else with their issues. If you notice there, he says, help take your brother's speck out of his eye, but only do it after you worry about the big plank in your own. He's saying, listen, don't point fingers at others. Realize I'm not perfect and they're not perfect. Don't be pointing to other people, pointing out all their flaws, all the while not realizing your own. Jesus goes on. In Matthew 7, he says, don't follow the crowd. He says, enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow is the road that leads to life, and only if you find it. And here he's simply saying, listen, don't follow the crowd. If you see a large crowd going somewhere, most likely something bad's going to happen. Don't go that way. Don't worry about where the crowd's going. You be an individual that does the right thing regardless of how it feels. Now here's the thing. Every single thing that Jesus has said in this amazing message so far, none of it shocks us, does it? There's nothing that's been said yet that's like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to worry. I didn't know it's a bad idea to check out somebody else. I didn't know that. There's not been one aha, whoa, that's heavy. There's not been any of that yet. This is an amazing message, but there's not been any, I didn't realize this, or a weight that comes. And I think the point that Jesus is trying to make in this Sermon on the Mount, it hasn't been made yet. There's a few more verses. And as we journey through this passage, in just a moment, we're going to see the point that he's trying to make. The aha moment. What Jesus is trying to say in this passage is not so much challenging us with what we know. The challenge that Jesus is getting ready to make is, will we do what we know? This is the big challenge. And it goes on in Matthew 7. It's a passage that if you're familiar with church, you've probably heard in some other ways, but here's what Jesus says. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine, what words? Don't worry. Don't look at other people. Don't follow the crowd. Those words. These who hear these words of mine and put them into practice is like a man who built his house on a rock. The rain came down, the storms rose, and the winds blew, and they beat against the house. Yet it did not fall because it had a foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain came down, the storms rose, and the wind blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. Not even a crash, just a great crash. Jesus says that he who hears these words of mine and does them, he who knows what to do and does it, is like a man who has built his house on a rock. And because we don't worry and we trust God and we're keeping our mind on our spouse, we're built on the rock. And he doesn't say there that when we do the right thing, that rains won't come and storms won't come and bad days won't hit against us. He says, but when you know the right thing to do and you do the right thing, when the storm comes, you will stand because you are standing on a rock. This is what Jesus says. Now, he goes on to say, but he who hears these words of mine, he who knows what to do, but does not do them, he is a person who has built his house on the sand. And the same rains that hit them, and the same rains that hit everybody, and the same winds that blow against every family, they'll blow against you, they'll blow against me. But because we have not done what we knew to do, because we knew the right thing, but we chose to do the wrong, our house does not stand. Our house, our marriage, our children, our finances, our home has a great crash. Not even a crash, it's a great crash. And see, to me, that's the aha, the whoa moment. Is okay, I know the right thing to do. That's not the question. Jesus wasn't trying to let us know things that we didn't know. We already know these things. The issue is not, do we know the right thing to do? The issue is will we do the right thing or will we not? If we do the right thing, our house, our home, our marriage is on the rock. If we know the right thing to do but we don't do it, there's going to be a crash. So here's the question. This is the question of the day. And when I say you, just know I'm always talking about myself as well. I'm not like pointing at everybody, hey, I'm perfect and you guys suck. I'm not saying that. This is us, okay? But here's the question of the day. Is do you, the person you woke up and you looked at in the mirror today? Do you, not your spouse, do you, not your in-laws, do you, not your children, do you know the right thing to do, and have you been doing it? Or do you, not your spouse, not your kids, do you know the right things to do, but not been doing them? How we answer this question is not just determining our life. I find it the oddest thing that Jesus, in this story, he says that the man builds his house, plural. How you answer that question will determine, is your house stable or is your family getting ready for a crash? This is of the utmost importance in the series that we're talking about. Now, the thing that's so interesting here, if you notice, and I've really been studying this the past few weeks, is that Jesus didn't say, "He who hears these words of mine and does not do them will put a crack in his foundation." He says, "He who hears these words of mine, don't worry, don't gossip, don't judge, don't have wandering eyes, don't live for today, don't follow the crowd. He who hears these words of mine, but has wandering eyes, follows the crowd, gossips, judges other people, he doesn't put a crack in his foundation. He has no foundation." It's a big difference there. There's no stability in our life. There's no stability in our family. If we know the right thing to do, but yet we choose to do another. Jesus is so explicit with this. He says, or basically is what he's saying, he says, if you forgive people when they treat you wrong, you will build your house on the rock. If you hold grudges when people treat you wrong, your house is built in the sand. He goes on to say, if you make a promise, we're going to go camping, you're going to be grounded for a week, and you keep the promise, they're grounded for a week, and you go camping, you're building your house on a rock. But if you say, we're going to go camping, and then you don't go camping, we've undermined our own authority. You're grounded for a week, but then we only ground them for a day. There's no foundation, and our house is going to crash. This is of the utmost importance. And here's the thing, I don't want to beat a dead horse. We get this. We know this. So why don't we do it? I know for me, being in the position that I'm in life as a married man, a Christ follower, a married man with children, was a youth pastor for a long time, now a senior guy, I continually go back to this illustration on my own. Kevin, you know the right thing to do. Are you going to do the right thing? You want stability. Do you want your house to fall? And unfortunately for me, there was a friend of mine that has become kind of the illustration that continually draws me to obedience rather than disobedience. This gentleman, we'll call him Dave. Not his name, but we'll call him Dave. Dave was my mentor. I love this guy. Put him on a pedestal, a little bit too high of a pedestal. And he was a mentor of mine. He became a friend of mine. He was a pastor for a long time. And not just a pastor, this guy, he was named recognition for the whole country. And married, 3 boys, wonderful wife, ministry was successful, international speaker, national speaker, wrote books, traveled, the whole shebang. This guy had it all. This guy had a house of all houses. Not only did he have a big old house, about 5,000 square feet, he had a Porsche. I mean, this guy, his life was good. And Dave knew what was right. Dave knew what was wrong. And for the most part, he did the right thing. But there was one area in his life he continually, willingly did the wrong. He knew the word, but he didn't obey it. It was very private. Started as a young man with lust, and then it went to porn addiction, then it went to physical outside of wedlock from time to time. And it went on for a long time, about 15 years. Hearing the right thing to do, but doing the other. And it was around Easter a couple years ago where the young lady that he was with felt guilty and went to her pastor and said, this is what I've been doing, and here's the man that I've been with. And because of Dave's fame, the pastor said, my God, I know him. And he called him on the phone and he said, you've got till Sunday to come clean, or out of love for you, I will make this known myself. So he did the right thing. He came clean. But there was a crash. There was a big crash. Dave's wife found out. Dave's 3 boys found out. The entire nation found out. Christianity Today wrote about it. It was mentioned online on USA Today. I'll never forget sitting at the table when my pastor at the time said Dave's had a moral failure. Been going on for 15 years. And there was a great crash. He lost his church. He lost his spouse. He lost it all. Not because he didn't know the right thing to do. Dave knew the right thing. But he chose to do the wrong. And that's the point Jesus is making. He who hears these words of mine, he who knows the right thing to do and does them, your house will be built on a rock. And the winds will blow and finances will blow and you'll go to Thanksgiving dinner and it'll be awkward at times, yes, but there will not be a crash because you're building on something stable, complete and utter surrender to the God of the universe. But if we don't, there will be a great crash. And so for me, in looking at this passage and in looking at my friend's life, there's a few things that I constantly remind myself of. And the first one is simply this, is my actions are a seed that will always bear fruit for the good or the bad. The Bible says this. It says in Galatians 6, it says, do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. And whoever sows to please of their flesh, from the flesh will reap destruction. There will be a great fall. And whoever sows to please the Spirit, that's obedience, from the Spirit of obedience will reap eternal life. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we don't give up. We already know this. We know that our actions are not just my actions. My actions are a ripple effect or a seed that's planted in Veronica. It's a seed that's planted in my children. It's a seed that's planted in their children's children. Everything we do is a seed, and everything we do will bear positive fruit or it'll bear negative fruit. And we all know this in our families. All of our families, there's an issue in every single one of our families that dates back to great-great-grandpa. Great-great-grandpa struggled with this. Because he struggled with this, his son struggled with this. Because his son struggled with this, they struggle with this. And now Uncle Billy struggles with it, and Aunt Susie struggles with it. Why? Because of something that great-grandpa didn't take care of 50 years ago. What he struggled with is bearing negative fruit in generations and generations and generations to come. My dad, jacked up as a young man, gave his heart to Jesus, surrendered to Jesus, became a pastor, obeys God's word. He's a pastor. I'm a pastor. My brother's a pastor. Jordan's a pastor. Michaela wants to be on the missions. Why? Because my dad did the right thing. My dad's actions have had an effect on me, on my brother, on my son, on my daughter. Everything I do is a seed. Everything you do is a seed. There's got to be somebody in your family, and hopefully it would be you, that would say, enough's enough. I know this addictions happened all the way through generations of time. I know our family typically does this. I know our family typically does that. But you know what? Not anymore. Not anymore. I'm going to take a stand, and I'm going to start doing what I already know is right. This isn't rocket science. It's just do what we know is right. I realize that my actions are a seed that will reap a harvest for the good or the bad. And the second one is, I realize that I have the power to choose every day. In Deuteronomy 30, 11 through 20, the writer of Deuteronomy, is Moses, wrote the words of God, and he said, this day I call, it's the third paragraph, guys, on the slides. This day I call the heavens and the earth as a witness against you that I've set before you life and death, blessing and curses. Now choose life so that you and your children may live and that you may love the Lord your God. Listen to his voice and hold fast to him. For the Lord is your life, and he will give you many years in the land that he swore to give your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Every day in our life, God, just like he did Jesus does on the Sermon on the Mount. And if you notice on the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus never even really at the end tells us which one we should do. He just says, if you know what to do and you do it, you'll build your house on a rock. If you know what to do and you don't do it, you're going to build your house on the sand. Thanks for coming. And he just leaves it there. And this is what God does in Deuteronomy. Every day I set before you life, and every day I set before you death. Every day I set before you do the right thing, and every day I set before you can do the wrong thing. But I hope that you choose the right thing, because if you do, you'll live. I'm going to close with this. If you want to make your house a home, not just for you, but for generations to come. And you may be here today, and you may be on the other side of this, to where years ago you did the wrong thing, and now there's been some big repercussions in your life, and you're on a second marriage or a third marriage or a broken family, or these things have happened. I want to let you know that God is a God of redemption. God is a God of not a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance, and a fifth chance. But whether you are living in some utopia deal where it's the typical American family, mom and a dad, 2.5 kids, a dog, and a white picket fence, or you're on your fifth marriage, there's got to be something inside of you. If you want to have a good home from now on, forget the past. From now on, there's got to be something inside of you that is like this prophet of old named Joshua, when he stood in front of a group of people, and some wanted to go this way and some wanted to go that way. Joshua stood and he said, listen, choose you this day who you will serve. If that person's God, then you go ahead and serve them. But for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. And if you want to turn your house and turn it into a home, you've got to come to this conclusion in your life. Choose you this day who you will serve. But as for me and my house, we will serve. We will do the right thing. We will serve God. And when you do that, it doesn't mean that your whole life's going to be rainbows and fairy tales. That's not it. It means when the storms come, you won't fall. And neither will your children, neither will your family. But for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. This is the only way to turn your house into a home. Complete and utter surrender to a great God who loves you. Let it be said of you 4 generations from now, great grandma so-and-so was a woman of God. Let it be said of you, gentlemen, generations from now, great grandpa, that guy, he always did the right thing. And I guarantee you, if that's said of you generations from now, the person that's saying it, their life will be stable because of you. This is what Jesus wants. He who knows the thing to do and does it is likened unto a man who's built his house upon a rock. When the rains come and the winds blow, that house will stand.
Thanks again for joining us tonight, The Church Online. If you're in the Visalia area, Celebrate with Family is 3 weeks away. This will be an unforgettable experience. We will have free family photos with Santa, hot cocoa, cookies, and so much more. For more information and scheduled service times, go ahead and visit celebratewithfamily.org. Have a great week.